She was standing at the microphone when the laughter started. Her husband's laugh, the one she knew better than her own breathing, was the loudest. The ballroom had gone quiet in that specific way that means everyone is listening but pretending not to. 300 people in formal wear. Crystal chandeliers, a podium she never asked to stand behind. And her father-in-law, silver-haired, commanding. Every inch the CEO of the world knew him to be had just asked her a question. Not a real question. The kind designed to expose. She could feel her pulse in her throat. The microphone was too close to her mouth. She could hear her own breathing in the speakers. Her husband was in the second row, next to his mother. His face was turned slightly away, but his shoulders were shaking. He was laughing. That was the moment everything began to unravel. This is a golden heart story for anyone who's ever stood in a room full of people and felt completely alone. Before we continue, tell us in the comments if you ever been humiliated by someone you thought loved you. Her name was Claire, 51 years old. Remarried for 3 years, still learning how to introduce herself at events like this. Wife of, daughter-in-law of, formerly used to be. She used to be a grant writer for a nonprofit. Small office, meaningful work, a life she understood. Then she met Jonathan. Jonathan Harrington, 48. Heir to Harrington Capital, warm smile. Patient with her silence. Said he didn't care that she wore the same black dress to 3 dinners in a row because she didn't know which was for what. He said he loved her because she didn't belong to his world. She believed him. His father, William Harrington, was different. 73. Controlling. Had built his empire through precision and public performance. Every dinner was a negotiation. Every introduction was a test. Claire had failed most of them. She didn't know the right people. Didn't summer in the right places. Couldn't talk about market trends or portfolio diversification or whoever had just been appointed to whatever board. At family dinners, William would pause mid-sentence, turn to her, and say things like, "Claire, you're quiet tonight. Nothing to add about the Sanderson acquisition?" Jonathan would smile, apologetic, but not defensive. "Dad, she's not in finance." "No," William would say, "I suppose she's not." It always felt like the end of a sentence that had more words. Tonight was the annual Harrington Foundation Gala, a charity event, to $1 million raised before the entrees were served. Claire had been asked to say a few words about the foundation's literacy program. Just a few words. She'd practiced in the hotel room that afternoon. Jonathan had kissed her forehead and told her she'd be great. But when she stepped up to the podium, the speech she'd memorized disappeared. The room was too big, the lights are too bright. William was watching her from the head table. She started speaking. Her voice sounded thin and certain. Halfway through, she stumbled over a name. Mispronounced the founder of one of the partner organizations. Someone in the audience scoffed. William raised his hand. Not aggressively, just raised it. She stopped. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice kind, almost gentle. "Claire, forgive me. But did you just say Rothschild instead of Rothschild?" Laughter rippled through the room. "Not cruel, just amused." "It's an easy mistake," William continued, smiling at the crowd. "If you've never had a reason to say the name before." More laughter. Claire's hands gripped the edges of the podium. She looked at Jonathan. He was laughing too. Not meanly, but he was laughing. His mother leaned over and whispered something to him, and he nodded, still smiling. Like this was all very charming and harmless. Claire's throat closed. She tried to finish the speech, but the words felt like they were dissolving. When she finally stepped away from the microphone, the applause was polite, sympathetic. She walked back to her seat, and Jonathan reached for her hand under the table. "You did great," he whispered. But he didn't look at her when he said it. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Claire smiled when people spoke to her, nodded when they didn't. At one point, a woman in a gold gown leaned over and said, "Don't worry, darling, William does that to everyone." It didn't help. By the time they got back to the hotel, Claire's face hurt from holding her expression in place. Jonathan loosened his tie, poured himself a drink. "That went well," he said. Claire stood by the window, looking out at the city. "Your father humiliated me." Jonathan paused. "He was joking, Claire. He laughed at me. In front of 300 people. He laughed with you. There's a difference." She turned. "You laughed too." Jonathan set his glass down. "Because it was funny. You mispronounced a name. It's not the end of the world." It felt like it. He sighed. The kind of sigh that meant he was trying to be patient. "Claire, you're being too sensitive." She stared at him. "I practiced that speech for 2 weeks." "I know. I was terrified." "I know. And when I made one mistake, your father made sure everyone noticed." Jonathan rubbed his face. "My father is exacting. That's who he is. But he doesn't mean anything by it." "Then why did it feel like he did?" Jonathan didn't answer. Claire's voice dropped. "You didn't defend me." There was nothing to defend. Something in her chest cracked. Not loudly, just a cracked. She turned back to the window. Jonathan finished his drink in silence. The next morning Claire woke up alone. Jonathan had an early meeting. He'd left a note on the pillow. "Love you. See you tonight." She stared at the note for a long time. Then she got dressed and went downstairs. The hotel restaurant was nearly empty. She ordered coffee and sat by the window, trying to ignore the tightness in her chest. That's when she saw her. Maria, the Harringtons' housekeeper. She was sitting alone at a corner table, still in her staff uniform, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Claire almost didn't approach her, but Maria looked up, saw her, and smiled. A real smile, the kind Claire hadn't seen in weeks. "Mrs. Harrington," Maria said softly. "You're up early." "So are you." Maria gestured to the seat across from her. "Join me?" Claire sat. For a few minutes they didn't speak. Then Maria said, "I heard what happened last night." Claire's stomach dropped. "You were there?" "I work every gala. I stay in the back." Claire looked down at her coffee. "I'm sure everyone thinks I'm ridiculous." "No," Maria said firmly. "They think you're kind, and that scares them." Claire blinked. "What?" Maria leaned forward. "Mrs. Harrington, may I tell you something?" "Of course." Maria hesitated. "Then I've worked for the Harrington family for 18 years. Claire nodded. She knew that. "I was there when Jonathan's first wife left him." Claire went still. Jonathan rarely spoke about his first marriage. She knew it had ended badly. That was all. Maria's voice was quiet, careful. Her name was Angela. She was Angela. A lot like you. Warm, genuine. Not from their world. Claire's pulse quickened. "What happened?" Maria looked out the window. "Mr. William happened." Claire felt something cold settle in her stomach. "He didn't approve?" "He destroyed her," Maria said simply. Slowly, publicly. Little comments at dinners. Little corrections in front of guests. He made her feel small until she couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Claire's hands started shaking. "And Jonathan?" Maria met her eyes. Jonathan loved her, but he loved his father's approval more. The room tilted. When Angela finally left, Mr. William told everyone she wasn't strong enough for the family. That she didn't have what it took. Claire's voice came out as a whisper. "And Jonathan believed him?" Maria didn't answer. She didn't have to. Claire didn't go home that day. She texted Jonathan. Told him she needed space. He didn't argue. Instead, she drove to the coast. rented a small room overlooking the water. She needed to think. For 3 days, she walked along the beach, sat in silence, let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down. The loneliness, the smallness, the creeping realization that she'd married a man who would always choose his father over her. On the fourth day, her phone rang. It was Maria. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm sorry to bother you." "You're not bothering me. I wanted to make sure you were all right." Claire's throat tightened. "I don't know if I am." There was a long pause. Then Maria said, "Would you like some company?" Maria arrived that evening with a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. They sat on the small porch watching the sunset over the water. "I shouldn't have told you about Angela," Maria said quietly. "Yes, you should have. It wasn't my place." "It was exactly your place," Claire said. "You're the only person who's been honest with me." Maria smiled sadly. "The Harringtons don't like honesty. I'm starting to see that." They sat in silence for a while. Then Maria said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you marry him?" Claire thought about it. "Because he made me feel seen," she said finally. "For the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw me. Not what I used to be, not what I'd lost, just me. And now," Claire's voice cracked, "now I feel invisible again." Over the next 2 days, Maria stayed. They cooked together, talked, laughed. Sometimes, Maria told her about her own marriage. 30 years, 3 kids, a husband who still left her notes in her lunch. "He's not perfect," Maria said. "But he sees me. Every single day." Claire felt something shift inside her. "I don't think Jonathan sees me anymore," she whispered. "I don't think he ever did," Maria said gently. "I think he saw someone who made him feel like a good person. And that's not the same thing." On the 6th day, Jonathan showed up. Claire was sitting on the porch when his car pulled into the driveway. He got out, still in his suit. He looked tired. "Claire." She didn't stand. "You didn't answer my calls." "I know." He climbed the steps, sat down beside her. "I've been worried." "Have you?" He flinched. "Of course I have." She looked at him. Really looked at him. "Jonathan, do you know why I left?" "Because of the gala. Because of my father. Because of you." He went still. "You laughed at me," Claire said. "In front of everyone." "Claire. And when I told you it hurt, you told me I was being too sensitive." "I didn't mean." "You didn't defend me. You didn't stand up for me. You let your father humiliate me. And then you made me feel like I was overreacting." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "My father wasn't trying to humiliate you." "Yes, he was. He was making a joke. At my expense." Jonathan stood pacing. "This is what he does, Claire. He tests people. It's how he is. And you let him. Because he's my father. And I'm your wife." The words hung in the air. Jonathan stopped pacing. "I know that. Do you?" His face twisted. "What do you want me to say?" "Claire? That I should have made a scene? Embarrassed him in front of his guests? I want you to say that my feelings matter more than his approval." Jonathan looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time she saw something she'd never seen before. Resentment. "You don't understand what it's like," he said quietly, "growing up in that family. Having to be perfect. Having to prove yourself every single day." "You're right," Claire said. "I don't understand. Because my family loved me unconditionally." Jonathan's face went cold. "Then maybe you should go back to them." The silence that followed was deafening. Claire stood. "Maybe I should." Jonathan left that night. Claire sat alone on the porch, staring at the ocean. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "Are you okay?" Claire didn't know how to answer that. Instead, she called her. Maria picked up on the first ring. "He's gone," Claire said. "I know. He called the house." "What did he say?" Maria hesitated. "He said you were being unreasonable." Claire laughed. It sounded hollow. "Of course he did." "Mrs. Harrington, what are you going to do?" Claire looked out at the water. "I don't know." She spent the next 2 days alone. Thinking, crying, remembering. She thought about the woman she'd been before Jonathan. The one who knew her own worth. Who didn't need permission to take up space. She thought about Angela. About how she must have felt in those final months. Small, erased. She thought about the moment at the gala when Jonathan laughed. Not at his father's joke, but at her. If this story reminds you of someone you lost or almost lost, share it with them. On the 8th day, Claire drove back to the city. But she didn't go home. She went to the Harrington estate. The gala was over, but the family was still there. A small gathering. Brunch on the terrace. Claire walked through the back entrance. Maria met her in the hall. "Mrs. Harrington. Is everyone outside?" "Yes, but Good." Claire walked past her. William saw her first. He was mid-sentence, talking about some acquisition. When he looked up and went quiet, Jonathan turned. His face went pale. "Claire." She didn't let him finish. "I need to say something." William set down his coffee. "Claire, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time." The terrace went silent. Claire looked at Jonathan. "I loved you," she said. "I loved you so much that I convinced myself your silence was support, that your distance was respect, that your laughter was harmless." Jonathan stood. "Claire, please." "But it wasn't harmless," she continued. "It was cruel, and you knew it." She turned to William. "And you." William's expression hardened. "You spent 3 years trying to make me small, trying to prove I didn't belong, and you succeeded." "Claire," William said coldly, "or being dramatic." "No," a voice said from behind her, "she's being honest." Claire turned. Maria was standing in the doorway. She stepped forward, hands trembling but voice steady. "For 18 years, I've watched you do this," Maria said, looking at William. "I watched you break Angela. I watched you humiliate every woman who didn't fit your idea of what this family should be." William's face went red. "Maria, you're out of line." "And I watched you," Maria said. Turning to Jonathan, "Let him do it. Every single time." Jonathan opened his mouth, closed it. Maria looked at Claire. "You deserve better than this." Claire felt something break open inside her. Not pain. Release. She looked at Jonathan one last time. "I'm leaving." "Clara." "I'm leaving, that I'm not coming back. You can tell people whatever you want. That I wasn't strong enough, that I didn't fit. I don't care anymore." She turned to Maria. "Thank you." Maria nodded, tears in her eyes. Claire walked out of the Harrington estate and didn't look back. 6 months later, Claire was sitting in a small cafe, working on a grant proposal. The door opened. She looked up. It was Maria. She was out of uniform, smiling. "I quit," Maria said, sitting down across from her. Claire laughed. "Really?" "Really. 18 years was enough." They ordered coffee, talked for hours. At one point, Maria asked, "Do you miss him?" Claire thought about it. "Sometimes," she said, "but I don't miss who I was with him." Maria smiled. "Good." Claire never remarried. She didn't need to. She built a life she recognized. Worked with people who valued her. Made choices that felt like hers. And every morning when she woke up, she felt like herself again. That was enough. Thank you for spending this time with Golden Heart Stories. If this story moved you, like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Leave a comment below. We read every single one. Until next time, remember, You are never too old to choose yourself.